So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hélène Soré. I'm one of the co-founders of inoqo. And welcome to our webinar, Leveraging Science-Based Targets to Drive Change in Grocery Retail. So the topic for today is really very important. The grocery retail industry has big challenges when it comes to decarbonization. These challenges include making supply chains greener, using eco-friendly packaging and waste practices, saving energy in stores and distribution centers, and reducing emissions from transportation. Setting science-based targets can help grocery retailers track progress, lower climate risk, and drive innovation for a greener food industry. To talk about this exciting topic, I'm very glad to introduce our two speakers. The first one is Lubomila Jordanova. She's joining us on the stage. She's the co-founder and the CEO of Plan A, Europe's leading corporate carbon accounting, decarbonization, and ESG reporting software provider. Lubomila is also a co-founder of the Green Tech Alliance, a community of more than 3,500 startups connected to more than 500 advisors from VC, media, and business. She is a member of the International Advisory Board for Social Innovation under the Federal Ministry of Education and Research of Germany, and she serves as an advisory board member to the Sustainability Board at Chloe. Prior to Plan A, she worked in investment banking, venture capital, as well as in the fintech industry. She has been recognized as Obama Leader Europe 2022, MIT Innovator under 35 Europe 2022, Marshall Fund Fellow 2022, Top 50 Women in Tech in Germany in 2021, and 30 under 30 from Forbes. Lubomila, welcome. To discuss the topic, we will also have Markus Linder to join the stage. He is the CEO and founder of inoqo. He's an impact entrepreneur, impact investor, founder and keynote speaker with an impressive track record spanning over 15 years in the startup scene. He started his entrepreneur journey in 2006 while he was still a student in Vienna, founding his first startup, Zugu. Under his leadership, Zugu rapidly scaled to become a global market leader, securing over $200 million in venture capital. Recently, Markus has redirected his focus towards addressing some of the most pressing challenges to our time, the biodiversity and the climate crisis. So in 2020, he founded his second venture, inoqo, a retail solution designed to help grocery retailers, F&B brands, and food suppliers in assessing and communicating the impact of their food products across the entire value chain. So very warm welcome from my side. Before we jump into the topic, I just want to remind everyone we have a chat. If you have any question, you can feel free to just drop your question in the chat, and we will have time at the end of the webinar to go through all the questions. So let's start with you, Markus. Could you give us an overview of why is it so important to decarbonize the food industry? What is specific about the food industry? And when you're done, maybe start the conversation together with Lubomila about the complexities in the food industry to collect data for Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. The stage is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much, and really excited to be part of this webinar. The question is really easy. Why is it important to decarbonize grocery retail? As a matter of fact, the food that we eat and buy there each and every day is responsible for 33% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. But it also has a huge impact on biodiversity. So as a matter of fact, 70% of the biodiversity loss on land can be directly attributed to our food system. And obviously, food is also having a big impact on health. So it's really important that we address these issues and that we make sure that we can convert the food system into a more sustainable system that is able to feed the world in a way that's in line with the planetary boundaries. Obviously, I'm super excited, Lubomila, to discuss with you today the solutions, but also the complexities about really collecting data for Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 emission assessment, specific in the grocery retail scene. And obviously, I'm keen to learn from you, what are the main challenges here with regards to Scope 1 and Scope 2? What are the main hotspots, but also what are the main opportunities from the perspective of grocery retail companies?
First of all, I'm incredibly excited to be speaking at this event, especially with the two of you. inoqo has been an important partner for planning, and I think together we demonstrate that there could be a multitude of innovations that can support retailers on decarbonizing and going through this journey of becoming a pioneer for sustainability. I think the questions that you're posing, also the introduction that you did, shows that there's a incredibly big importance for businesses within this segment to focus on sustainability and to find an angle to become experts, but then also take the tangible steps to measure, reduce, and engage the stakeholders. I would like to focus maybe on the hotspots part of your question. When we look into Scope 1, we're talking about direct use of energy. Typically, grocery retailers have a significant amount of energy consumption within their facilities related to refrigeration, but also related to lighting. This might seem obvious, but I can definitely stipulate from our experience and from the learnings that we've gathered by working with such that there's definitely not too much measurement that is happening on a granular basis. The second element is related to refrigerant leakage. Refrigeration systems, essentially for storing perishable goods, are often essentially related to some potent gases that are not measured, are not gathered in terms of data. So businesses do not know that this critical category needs to be analyzed and do not understand that this Scope 1 element is critical also to their progression on their sustainability journey. Another element is related to waste management. Anyone, even if you're only on the consumer side, if you're not a professional within this field, can understand that such a massive operation that is related to so many different products, obviously, if not optimized perfectly or if not optimized for sustainability, has a lot of waste associated to it, even solely related to the packaging that brings the particular products to the grocery stores. We're looking here into food spillages, we're looking into the packaging, we're looking into also other materials related to essentially how the company stays successful but potentially unsustainable along the way because of not optimizing. On the Scope 2 side, we're talking about electricity consumption. You can imagine a grocery chain that is reliant on refrigeration, lighting, heating, cooling systems that require a lot of electricity. Of course, like depending on the intensity of the grid, this electricity could be coming from renewable resources. But if this is not assessed, if this data is not gathered, then businesses don't necessarily have this know-how and the understanding that they need to respond to this. On the challenges you can understand from these categories that we're talking about, not knowing where does energy come from, high energy dependencies, also complex refrigeration systems that don't get to be changed all the time, and also, if not retrofitted or improved, potentially could be outdated in the way they exhume and also like in use energy. There's of course grid reliance, and of course there's the element that is a bit more both qualitative and quantitative related to the regulatory complexity and uncertainty. That is ultimately the pinnacle that combines all of these different topics that have been covered. Markus, I'll bring it back to you, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the Scope 3 element. You've been working extensively with these kinds of industries, these kinds of retailers. What has been your observation there?
Yeah, exactly. Scope 3 is our daily daily lunch, basically. What we see within the grocery retail industry is that the Scope 3 emissions are usually responsible for more than 90% of the product of the overall footprint of a retailer. So all those topics that retailers love to talk about, like, hey, we use green electricity, in our stores. We are transitioning towards, using maybe electrical vehicles and hydrogen vehicles. These are very important steps within the Scope 1 and Scope 2, and it's really great to see those initiatives. But the real big elephant in the room from the perspective of the grocery retailers is really their Scope 3 emissions. And primarily, we talk about the impact the products they're selling each and every day. This is where really the very large part of the emissions come from. And this is a very challenging topic for the grocery retailers, because usually they have no direct control over those emissions, because they buy products from producers, from either private label brand producers or A brand producers. And obviously, there's huge challenge around collecting data from them, also being able to compare the data, because obviously just because you get the product carbon footprint reported from company A, that doesn't mean that can be compared to the product carbon footprint provided by company B, which might use a different methodology, might include different life cycle stages, use different databases. And that's really the big elephant in the room, and the big challenge here that retailers are fighting with. And looking forward to talk about the solutions a bit later, but this is definitely what keeps many sustainability executives within the grocery retail side awake at night.
Okay, thank you both. I think what I found very interesting is to hear from both Lubomila and Markus the need for granularity and quality data. So let's go a little bit more now into the topic, especially into the science-based targets. So we've had now the overview of the challenge and the difficulties for grocery retailers to collect all those data. But what's the next step? So once you have collected those data, the Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3, how can you, as a food retailer, establish science-based targets? Are there any different strategies or methodologies? Lubomila, what do you think about this?
So probably it's first important to give context to what science-based targets are, even though I'm sure that in the audience we have a lot of experts that have a lot of know-how about the topic. Science-based targets essentially reduction targets that are set by companies in alignment to the latest international climate goals. And what they focus on is setting up the company on a trajectory to align to going below impact of 2 degrees increase in temperature. So essentially being a positive contributor to the economy that is also aligned to the climate goals that we have set out in Paris. These kinds of targets are critical for any business because it gives a common approach and pathway for businesses to decarbonize while setting up the whole company for success and longevity. Because let's be honest, a company without a climate agenda is likely to be unsuccessful in the future, especially given the regulatory pressure. What the science-based targets should allow for a company to develop is a rigorous, clear roadmap to reduce emissions, increase accountability and transparency, involve stakeholders with this common goal, and enhance, of course, the reliance and competitiveness, meeting shareholder and stakeholder expectations. When it comes to strategies, what we've seen from our experience, there's a lot of different approaches that businesses have taken in the last few years. Why? Because even the legislation itself was giving conflicting information over the last 24 months or so. There was a lot of new laws that were coming in. The science-based targets were also improving their methodology. And there was, of course, a lot of customer, consumer, investor demand that was changing depending on the level of knowledge about sustainability. We have been able to recognize a few strategies that work related to decarbonizing your emissions. First of all, and foremost, as also prescribed by the values that we live in Plan A, science is a must focus element of any sustainability strategies. Businesses need to develop their goals against certain targets that are also related to what the science tells us is combining good impact on the economy, but also good impact on the planet. Businesses need to start by, first of all, focusing on assessing data. Setting targets is great, but then what you need to be able to achieve these targets is really going into reliant, relevant, and also, I would say, stakeholder gathered data. So not only about the business itself, but also about the share of proportion that you have within Scope 3. And Markus, I'm sure that you'll be able to cover this in detail as well. The key step that happens once the target has been set, this gives essentially a benchmark for the progress that has been made towards these targets and is the reference point. So business knows essentially how to think of success, how to think of progress, and also what kind of milestones to set as step-by-step agenda for the years until the target is achieved. I would emphasize on three critical things that would allow for any target related to science-based targets or even just general decarbonization target for a business to be achieved. It's quality of data collection. It is about improvement of processes within the organization for data collection, but also for optimization of value chains. And finally, it's about the engagement of the team. How do you make sure that your team is educated on sustainability, understands the value of these targets, and then works towards them on a common ground rather than only from the sustainability team's perspective? Markus, maybe I bring it back to you of what does it really mean on a product, on an individual kind of production vertical level?
Yeah, I mean, how do we basically decarbonize those 90% of the footprint of a grocery retailer? And we see that grocery retailers have four levers. One key lever is obviously to reduce the impact of your own private label brands. So really making sure that over time you work on decarbonizing these products. The second big lever is that you incentivize your A-brand suppliers, your third-party brand suppliers, to really work towards decarbonizing their products. You don't need to worry about the big ones. So I think the very big players here, they are at least starting to do their homework and moving into the right direction. But you should be very much worried about your small and mid-sized producers and A-brands, as well as private label brand products, because we see that they are overwhelmed on their own, that they are not really, able to move forward and move the needle without help. They are just lost in the situation at the moment. We also see that a third very important lever is consumer behavior change. So let's face it, if we consumers continue to consume the massive amount of meat and milk products that we're consuming today, it's going to be very hard for retailers to decarbonize. And the fourth element is obviously, and Lubomila, you've touched upon it already briefly, the topic of food waste and spillage, which is also a lever. And what we see is, as a retailer, you really need to address those four levers together and have a strategy on how you approach that. Today, from a pure reporting perspective, most retailers fulfill their reporting obligations with regards to SBTi, with regards to CSRD and other reporting frameworks by basically applying category averages to estimate the emissions of their products sold. So basically every sauce on the shelf gets the same value, no matter whether it's full of meat or full of plant-based options, how it's packaged. So it doesn't really make a difference. All of these sources get the same value. And this is obviously fine from a reporting perspective in step one. However, it does not allow you to make progress, because year over year, your products will have the same product carbon footprint, no matter whether your suppliers are actively investing into decarbonizing their production. And that's why it's so important to leave that very high level and to really go down to assess products by taking the ingredients into account, take the composition of products into account, and take the production processes into account. The second strategy that we see in terms of actually really reducing the impact of Scope 3 is that retailers have identified, obviously, that the meat category, the milk products category has a very high footprint, and they solely focus on, okay, what can we do to sell less meat products, to push obviously vegan products, to sell less milk products in the end. And that has to be part of the solution. But if you only focus on reducing your emissions by, making it unattractive to buy milk and meat products from you, you're going to really, have a quite high risk that you lose market share towards other retailers who are doing a better job in really taking consumers along into the journey, who don't just work over price and reduction of promotion by reducing their sales in meat products and overall animal-based products, but who play a more even who try to evenly distribute the reduction goals across the entire assortment and to really take consumers along onto this journey. And yeah, I think it's a very risky strategy to say, okay, we're just gonna decarbonize by reducing the sales of milk and of animal product. It's an important piece of the puzzle, but if that's your only strategy, you run a very large risk that consumers go somewhere else to buy their more affordable meat there, because the other retailer is doing a better job in reducing the impact of the overall assortment and thereby also distributing the burden evenly across the categories. Another approach that obviously is playing an important role, it's more like a spend-based approach where the retailers kind of reach out to their large suppliers, ask them what their product carbon footprint of their products was on average, and then account for the decreasing footprint that's reported by those large suppliers. That obviously works for the very large ones who do that and who have the technologies and the teams in place to do those calculations. However, it also doesn't really allow you to benefit from a shift in your consumption mix from that producer. So let's assume your customers buy more and more, plant-based products from that producer. You can't really benefit from that much. And it also becomes very hard to then take promotion decisions or to take listing decisions, because every producer is using a different type of methodology, is using different types of databases to calculate the impact of their assortment and to kind of calculate the product carbon footprint, which makes it very hard for you as a retailer to decide whether the product A, which you source from company A, is more sustainable, or product B from company B is more sustainable. So this is also not an ideal way to really deal with that. And especially it comes with the problem that all the mid-sized and small players, and with mid-sized players, I'm even talking about billion-euro companies in that space, as we have experienced from our own direct contact with these companies. We don't see them taking the action that's needed at the moment. We don't see them assessing the impact. We don't see them making progress. They're kind of lost in this process. And retailers who don't do a good job in helping them and supporting them in this journey towards more sustainable products really run into the risk that they will become even more dependent from the large ones, because they have to list out the products from the small players, because they have they don't contribute to the scope 3 emission targets. That obviously hurts small regional brands that actually consumers want, because consumers don't just want to buy the products from the big ones. They really value those small regional products, and therefore we believe it's really instrumental to support those retailers, to support those brands and producers that don't have the multi-billion dollar kind of revenue, which is usually really required to make progress on decarbonization. So they need help, they need support. I think that's a good summary on that. Maybe we can get now to a bit more practical steps with regards to establishing ambitious science-based targets. And Lubomila, maybe you want to start talking about scope 1 and scope 2.
Of course, I think we spoke about the science-based targets. What probably is critical for people to understand is, where do you start on the whole process of becoming a company that is on a journey to have transparency on the data, engages the team, and also really understands the tangible steps to take to be able to reduce emissions and potentially then become a competitive player on the market. We've now worked with more than 1,500 companies in different sectors, not only within the one that we're discussing today. And what has been interesting to observe is that while you could have a sustainability team or impact team, ESG team that is incredibly engaged, until you don't try to penetrate the whole organization with the knowledge on the topic and the importance on the topic, you most likely will fail to move fast enough. So for me, first and foremost, is important to speak about education and team engagement. These are steps that normally come in the shape and form of online education. We have a sustainability program with more than 10,000 people that have gone through it, and these are individuals that want to learn about the topic, albeit they don't have in their title sustainability, ESG, or impact. It could also come in the form of webinars or offline events or simply even educational materials that the sustainability team shares, but ultimately then you align everyone to get going on the importance of the topic. The second bit is actually speaking to the shareholders, board members. Keep in mind that these steps also sometimes come in companies in different order, but speaking to the people that also can drive big decisions within the company and getting their buy-in is incredibly critical. After this happens, then you can start thinking of the practical nitty-gritty data collection. It is important to understand the impact of your sector. There's plenty of maps, and both the companies that are sitting here on stage provide a lot of online content related to how you can think about your sector and what are the hotspots, what are the topics that you should consider. When you look into this map, then you can identify which data points are critical for you that need to be emphasized on and collected in the context of data as fast as possible. Then we mentioned the baseline assessment. This is once you establish that you want to set an ambitious goal, it's about gathering the data, going through the process of engaging the team, but then also coming out with something that is an overview of where you're standing today that can give you this baseline year, that can give you this benchmark of what should be then the target that you set yourself. And then it really matters to start thinking about the continuous monitoring. Like, how do I take this assessment that I've done now to then look into the details on a continuous basis, monthly? We have clients that look at them in the retail space on a weekly basis, some on a daily basis, because if you really set an ambitious decarbonization target, you actually need to go into every single facility, track the progress. Did they change the electricity provider? Have they been able to find a way to improve the numbers related to waste management or food leakages and so on? And of course, once this process is ongoing, is to continue going on this journey to push your suppliers to become better and to improve essentially the process of communicating how you're taking a step for the whole industry, not even only for yourself, because every single piece of knowledge that you gather for yourself is actually useful for anyone else in your sector as well. Markus, maybe you want to add to the topic on the product side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we really emphasize is the importance of assessing the impact of all your tens of thousands of food and beverage products by starting with the product data that's available today. So today, retailers, due to legal reasons, have to have the ingredients, the order of the ingredients of the food products, the nutritional values, the country of origin of the products available. And basically what we do with inoqo is we re-engineer the composition of these products, and we apply emission factors onto all the ingredients and all the processes that go into one single food product, by also taking the composition of the product into account. And typically our customers start with their own private label brand products, because here they have the biggest lever. They can immediately influence sourcing decisions, which ingredients to use. They can immediately take decisions about using substitutes, for example, changing the sourcing country, or working with their suppliers to ensure that they make progress. And So basically it works, you start with your thousands of private label brand products, you calculate the product carbon footprint, and then you need to have obviously some kind of incentive schema in place for your suppliers so that they provide with more and more primary data about their products over time. So that might be information like what's the exact country of origin of those key ingredients that go into those products, or what's your electricity mix, what does packaging look like in detail for that product. This way, over time, suppliers can provide more and more data, which make the assessment of the product more accurate. And what we as inoqo are doing is we basically use conservative data in the absence of primary data for consumer communication. So if we don't know where the cocoa comes from that's in a chocolate, we would rather add basically a margin of safety onto the secondary average value, because this really creates a strong incentive for the suppliers to provide more and more data over time. Because what our grocery retail customers are then doing to incentivize that kind of behavior is that they, for example, recommend more sustainable alternatives in their online shop, in their apps, and really give consumers the possibility to basically choose a more sustainable product right at the point of sales, or they offer ways to promote the most sustainable products per category in a better way. Merchandising decisions, promotion decisions. These are all decisions where this data can be taken into account. But obviously, there is also ultimately the need to clean up the category and to basically take a decision to, for example, remove 5% of the worst performing products every year from the category, which now really creates a very strong incentive towards the suppliers to, first of all, share more data with us so that we can assess the product in a more granular way, but more importantly, to then take actions on the hotspots that we identify and really make sure that the products become more and more sustainable over time. And we do not only do that on an individual product level, but we can also provide hotspots on a supplier level, so that when a merchandiser at a retailer talks to a supplier, the team member can basically identify not only what are the key hotspots of this product, but then also provide specific solutions and recommendations on how to, for example, replace a certain ingredient by a more sustainable ingredient, by how to work with suppliers to decarbonize that specific product. And the data obviously can be used on the one hand for reporting, so for SBTi, but here we use here we don't apply this margin of safety because we want representative value, but for consumer communication, so for customers who then communicate the product carbon footprint, in this case towards their consumers, here we apply this margin of safety, and this data should also be used for supplier communication. So this is here kind of the way how we encourage retailers to really step by step over a long period of time work with their suppliers as well as with their consumers on really making progress. And consumer communication is obviously also really key. We see very positive results in terms of educating consumers about the product carbon footprint, about products. There is real behavioral change coming out of attaching like a label onto products that conveys the message to consumers whether a product is more or less climate friendly. So things like that really have an impact. This data can not only be used for labeling, but it can also then be used for consumer engagement. So, for example, praising consumers at the checkout for a very climate-friendly purchase, for a very climate-friendly basket, or pointing out which of the products was the most climate-friendly product, which one had the highest impact. So you can really provide positive incentives, like, for example, extra points if consumers shopped in a very climate-friendly way over the course of a month, or engage them into challenges where you basically invite them to try out new things like plant-based milk alternatives, take them onto that journey and reward them if they try out new things that have a lower impact. But this strategy really needs to go hand in hand. So it's all about helping your private label brand producers to reduce the impact of their products, providing the right incentives for the A brands, but also taking consumers along onto the journey. It's a long journey, a complex journey, but yeah, very important journey to embark onto. And we're exciting to see, a lot of retailers really taking action here now.
Maybe just before concluding, I have a question for both of you. I mean, I know we can look at this directly on the SBTI website, but maybe you can speak from your experience. Are any retailer at the moment have already committed to SBTI target? Do you have any concrete example you can share with us from your direct experience? Or, I mean, who wants to start? I mean, it's just an open question to both of you.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the first grocery retailers who actually committed to SBTI was Walmart, the largest retailer on the planet. But we also have retailers in Europe, more and more retailers who are basically embarking onto this journey, like, for example, Migros, but also several of the German, UK, French-based retailers. So there's more and more coming. Right development.
I can add, given I'm also calling in from London, Tesco's, they have set a target to reduce their emissions significantly by 2035 in their operations, and then by 2050 aligned to science-based target against, of course, the 2-degree goal. So there's definitely plenty of examples, and I think we can even dive into the maybe smaller or maybe some geography-specific chains. But we see this as a common trend because, in my view, and Markus, I'm sure that you also have opinions about this, there's quite a lot of benefit to having a goal that allows you to see a pathway that would be also looking somewhat similar to someone in your industry, because you can learn from one another, you can also align to a journey, and also you can make sure that you don't repeat the same investment in the types of initiatives, which obviously in today's economic environment is important not to kind of invest in if it's already been done, and you can learn through peer partners and peer experts.
Yeah, totally agree on that. And one thing that I totally see is the importance of also retailers coming together and not asking their suppliers to provide the same data in 10 different systems and 7 different formats, but to really make it as easy as possible for the suppliers to ultimately provide that data. So, for example, in the Netherlands, 4 of the leading retailers are currently working on an initiative which is championed by our partner Impact Buying, where they have decided they want to come together and together collect Scope 3 data from their suppliers, because they have lots of overlapping suppliers, and they know that suppliers are already today totally overwhelmed with the reporting requirements, and don't know where to start, and are only doing reporting and don't have time for optimizing actually anymore. And by really coming together and deciding to together collect that data and together dive deeper into the Scope 3 emissions of their joint suppliers, they are obviously creating much more traction here amongst the suppliers, because suddenly it becomes clear for the suppliers, okay, there's one format, one platform I need to feed the data in. Initiatives like that are really crucial. And also the alignment around the standards here is really crucial. And here we are very excited about the work we're doing around the European Sustainable Food Coalition, which is a coalition that basically aims to standardize the way how product impact assessment on a product level, but also on an ingredient level, has to be done, how those values can be communicated to consumers. So I totally agree with you. To make it short, it's all about collaborating. It's all about coming together and really moving the needle together, because together as an industry, you can achieve much more than if every individual contributor is just, struggling their own.
Thank you very much to both of you. It was extremely interesting. Before opening the floor to the question, I just would like to announce that Plan A and inoqo have created an exclusive offer for all attendees. So a joint demo and a free consultation to guide you to decarbonization. So if you are interested to know more, if you have questions around those SBTI and you want to deep dive into a workshop with both companies, please drop us a note at hello@inoqo.com. I think you will have the email exactly in the chat. And you can mention the promo code SBTI, and we're happy to take some time with you to deep dive in those important topics. Let's start with the question. Thank you so much. I was looking at it, really cool question. So I'll start from the top. From Claudia, how do you believe that initiatives such as Oatly disclosure of their carbon footprint on their products shaped the grocery product carbon footprint? Who wants to start?
I'm happy to kick it off. I think this initiative definitely created a lot of buzz in the industry because it was the first of its kind and definitely the most visible one. And essentially what it pushed people to do is threefold. First was to understand what actually these labels and numbers meant. Second of all, to start associating products to also the environmental impact, which, as we know by the latest legislation from the EU related to green labeling, same one in the UK about green marketing, which essentially bans labels like planet friendly, eco-conscious, and so on, when there's no data backing. It pushed ultimately many to start understanding that they needed to be a bit more conscious about how they communicated themselves. And the final bit, in my view, is also to create a community that is of engaged, sustainably minded consumers, but also even businesses. As we know, Oatly is now used by a lot of different coffee shops and other types of places where you can spend time and have a cappuccino with oat milk or whatever. And in my view, this really kicked off a push in the whole industry to start thinking about these KPIs as something that is equally as important as the price of a product. Because if you're someone that is conscious about what you eat, the quality of it, but also the quality that it brings to the health of the planet, you want to know that the premium that you're paying for something that potentially is cheaper, significantly more expensive, because there's these two options in the sustainable subsector, I would definitely confirm, was dependent on understanding what do you want to sign up for. Do you want to sign up for a product that is sustainable? Do you want to sign up for a product that is good for the planet, so your consciousness is also aligned to the quality maybe of your experience with this cappuccino or this oat milk dish that you're having? Markus, I don't know how it resonated with you. We definitely saw a lot of clients asking for this kind of assessment to go into this direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that has been really a super cool and smart move from them. And ultimately, our vision is that you have the product carbon footprint of every, on every product that you can buy at the supermarket. I think what I would add is that what we're working towards is really to ensure that the product carbon footprint, the methodology, the underlying methodology is consistent, because it becomes really hard if, Oatly uses one methodology that, includes the emissions until the door of the supermarket. Another brand uses different methodology that goes to the, consumer, also takes consumer use into account. But this is also really the opportunity for the retailers, because they can basically decide on one methodology and can basically really assess all their tens of thousands of products based on one methodology in a consistent way. And this is why I believe that's the way to go to really help consumers to take better decisions here, obviously.
Thank you. Next one, I think, is a bit more for Markus. How can we engage food retailers to start taking action in non-emission hotspots, in spite of not having the best data we would like, and how to monitor progress given this lack of data? Excellent question.
Yeah, I mean, it really all starts with setting goals, right? Just came off a call with a customer where we then talked about how do you redistribute those goals? I mean, the first step is you need to set a goal as a company. I want to decarbonize. The next step is that you need to break down these goals, not only in terms of what do I want to achieve per year, but also how much do I want to get out of influencing the behavior of my customers, helping them to transition to more healthy and more sustainable diet. How much do I want to attribute to my different food categories, right? How much reduction do I need to see from the meat category, from the vegetable category, and so on? And really then also within the organizations, having people accountable, really making that part of people's goals, that the emissions of their products go down. This is really, I would say, the prerequisite. In terms of the data, this is really what ultimately with our methodology we take care of. That, although we start with secondary data, with conservative secondary data in absence of primary data, we build in the incentives that quickly over time lead to more and more granular data and much better data quality, because suppliers basically know that the more primary data they provide about their products, the higher their chance that the impact of their product will go down, the lower the chance that they will be kicked off the shelf, the higher the chance that they will be actually purchased as more sustainable alternatives by consumers. So it's all about really aligning, assigning goals within the company, providing the right incentives internally to the different team members, but also externally providing the right incentives towards the suppliers. It's not a journey that will go from one day to the other, but if companies really decide to get active here and take the right measures, they will see a lot of success here.
Maybe I add something on our side, because actually the question is definitely relevant to us as well. We work with one of the biggest fast food chains in the world, and they're assessing 4,500 products through our platform and have more than 100 people collaborating on the platform. The best reason why they've been successful with kicking off this project, and this has been a journey, of course, on their side as well, is because they started using the data that they had available to them. And Markus, I'm sure you will agree, there's plenty of data that a company has access to that can give them clues on the kickoff of the sustainability journey. Maybe it doesn't bring them to where you bring them, which is kind of having the specific product label and kind of the decarbonization per product, but it gets them going on aligning the organization to start thinking which are the suppliers we should engage, which are also the waste elements of our production. And it is a true team job, but it should not be overwhelming already at the start, because there's plenty that businesses rely on when it comes to data, even today, before they've kicked off maybe sustainability initiatives.
Yeah, absolutely agree. But I think it's also really about providing the people with the right tools. So I think we need to be a key goal from our side is that we do not build a platform that is a platform for the sustainability team, but we want to build a platform that really makes it easy for those people who take the decisions in their everyday life, be it the people responsible for merchandising, be it the people responsible for listing new products, be it the people who develop new products, to really incorporate the impact of products into their everyday life, so that when you design a new private label brand product, part of your standard process is that before you even think about, hitting the go button and start producing that product, that you check, okay, what's the impact of this product? And to think about how can I further reduce the impact of that product by different sourcing decisions, by thinking about replacing certain ingredients by substitutes. Or the same for the marketing team, right? If I need to promote products, why not promote those products that have a lower impact instead of putting the high impact sausage on top of my advertising? So it's a lot about really getting that knowledge out of the sustainability team, putting it into the hand of the people who are taking those decisions every day, but also obviously incentivizing them by giving goals in terms of, hey, Each category is responsible for a certain reduction goal per year. So it's a lot of change that needs to happen here also within the companies, in combination with providing them the right tools that helps them to really do the job.
Perfect. Thank you both. Next one is for Lubomila. I know that Plan A is a B Corp, certified company since 2022 already, with a high score of more than 100 points. Congratulations. What does the B Corp means for the company, and what are the next steps, especially since it means Plan A company has a high environmental and social performance?
We are incredibly proud to be top 5% in the world for governance. We have 114 points, and it has been definitely a team process to gather the evidence that shows through data that we're doing our bit. From the get-go of Plan A, and I think we've had quite a lot of discussions also with Markus about this, when we started building the company, we believed that there's no way in which we can sell sustainability software if we were not walking the talk, if we were not actually aligning. Therefore, we also have science-based targets for ourselves that are incredibly ambitious. B Corp in particular has been quite critical. We have a lot of different activities in the company, and what I'm excited to share is that for the last 6-9 months, we have put together a full squad in the company, led by my co-founder Nathan, who is leading essentially a group of experts, but also enthusiasts. Not everyone is part of our scientific team, that are implementing initiatives so that we can improve for the next cycle of the certification to get even more points. It has meant for us to have a certain standard and a benchmark for what we try to sell also to the rest of the world, because B Corp is not only a stamp of approval, but it's a rigorous process to understand, is your company actually one that is following a set of principles? Is it also setting, I would say, ambitious goals to further improve? And does it want to put out all of this information so others can learn from it as well?
Super impressive. Thank you. A question for both of you. In your view, are there new decarbonization challenges that the quick e-commerce grocery retail, such as Get Here, Flinked, sector face versus traditional grocery retail? Are there any difference?
We have some experience within this segment, and I'll keep it short. I think the main challenge is related to waste management, especially when you're working on such a short notice delivery. You're looking into a lot of optimization, calculation, algorithmic work related to understanding whether your storage room that is full of a lot of products will be promoted cleverly enough so that it goes out as well and it doesn't become a perishable good that was wasted. Of course, with new models like this one, the know-how that you have in the old retailers, the established supermarket chains, maybe is not always the same. So it definitely has been a clear issue that we have identified, and hopefully these kinds of companies can also learn from the big and long-term established retailers, making sure that the data, the tech element is combined with also not wasting.
And from my perspective, they actually have a huge advantage when it comes to consumers, because 100% of your consumers buy through your app or through your website, which means you can basically, for every product, you can really make transparent, is this a high impact product? Is it a low impact product? You can recommend more sustainable alternatives from your assortment. Obviously, your assortment is more limited, so you don't have the massive amount of choices like a conventional retailer, but still there is usually a lot of room to basically recommend more sustainable alternatives here. Even like on the checkout, hey, this is your number one, your top hotspot product. Here would be an alternative that we can recommend. You can really do a lot about then incentivizing customers to transition to more sustainable products. So on that end, I really see a huge opportunity, but obviously also on the sourcing side. I mean, you need to think much more about, which products should I list, which should I, put onto the shelf. And taking here then the sustainability of these products into account can make a big impact and a big difference. Yeah, and that's why it's a very interesting field where a lot of progress can be made from my perspective.
Perfect. I think we're getting now very close to the end. Thank you so much for both of you for this very insightful talk. I think for all the participants, you have the email address in the chat. So if you have any question to any of the speakers, feel free to reach out to them. And yes, looking forward for maybe a next webinar with you, Lubomila, who knows, and definitely looking forward for the workshop together.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.